a quick little tip when you're laying out for this sort of thing. Take the measurements that you absolutely know for certain. So for instance here, I know that this is the layout of what the coop's going to be. I know that the back section of the hen house is exactly 71 centimetres, or 710 mil. And I know that the depth of the nesting box is 380. And then from there, I can work out what the distance is from there to the edge, which is 1200 or 1.2 meters. And then to get this measurement, all you have to do is add 1200 to 710 and you know exactly how long that needs to be. And then this distance here is completely arbitrary, and it's however much space you've got. Now, I can't go any further than the eucalyptus, so I've picked an arbitrary point, which is almost exactly the length of that timber. And I've taken that there. And then to figure that out, I just did that minus that equals that. So it's basic maths, but it does mean that you'll end up completely square. And then all you need to do is think about the joints that happen at each corner. So you could do a lap joint or a butt joint or whatever it is that you want to do. In which case you've got to account for the thickness of the timber. But I'm happy that this is going to be perfectly square when I go and chop it up now. Right, this is all cut up now into kind of 2x2s, which is perfect for what I need. I can get a decent bit of framing done out of that. That Bosch machine is really good, and if it feels like it's being overloaded or overpowered, it reduces the speed of the blade down quite considerably, and you can back off and then it comes back up to speed. So it's got a kind of a sensor on its motor, so that's really decent. Yeah, so that's all cut now, so I can use all of this for the framing. Yeah, it's good. We're making good progress. So this is the perimeter. So it runs around here, comes along and around. The chicken wire will go that way. I've checked all of it for square with my speed square, and it's all fine. It's all good. I'm happy. There's some bits of twist in the timber. There's not a lot I can do about that, to be honest. It's not the end of the world, it's just a little bit of twist. But it does make it look a little bit funny on the angle sometimes, so I'm checking and double checking everything. So what I've done is put a little strut. This acts as a support underneath the nesting box, and it also means this also runs perfectly in line with the front there. So I'm going to run the chicken wire all the way across the front there. It'll go down underneath, down the back of here and underneath here, and it will come out. You basically put an apron of mesh all the way around under the floor to stop any predators from digging their way underneath. So that's the front. That's the front there. It'll wrap round this side. It'll come round, and again it'll then come across there. Right, so I've got a few other timbers up. I'm still kind of roughly setting it in, getting it all level. Just going to support this on here. This will get snugged up. That's going to get straightened up that way. This is where the wood was peeling a little bit internally in the middle of the, well, it was actually split, so I ripped that down the middle. Okay, I have now finished putting up this frame. I've done half lap joints on these so they're a bit more sturdy, and it goes all the way around over to there and then down. Just need to secure that last bit in place and I'm done. I'm really pleased with it. The ground is still quite uneven, so it's quite high up there, so you'll see that that is ever so slightly out of line because that corner is high, so I just need to scrape down the ground there a little. But otherwise it's fine. I've got the taper, the same as the roof, and I've done the same on that side. And I did that, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but I did that by cutting that at that 4-degree angle so that it flows up there. I've put another strut in there to support it, and I've deliberately kept all of these on the inside and that on the outside because it allows me to come down and then pin it on the inside there and on the outside there. You'll see what I mean when I do it, if that's not overly clear. I've also put a beam across the middle. This helps keep it rigid and strong, but it also gives us things to hang from here, so we can hang the feeders and the food. With a little bit of leftover timber, I've just made a little gate here, just like that, which I'll put a hinge on, and that can pivot into the coop. So that's easy enough. And so now I can start running a lot of the chicken wire. It's really hot today, 26 degrees, very, very warm, so I might not get a whole load more done. So this is just the gate. It's just in loosely for now. Things aren't entirely straight. It's actually the wood is slightly bowed, this one in and this one out. It's really not the end of the world, to be honest. Nothing's going to be able to get through there. There's going to be a hinge, 2 hinges, top and bottom, and there'll be a latch as well which will hang down, so gravity will help keep it in place. And this will be covered in chicken wire. That will be chicken wired. So it's perfectly sufficient. Like I said right at the beginning in part 1, if you haven't seen part 1, then I will leave a link to it just up here. As I said in part 1, this is all quite rough. It's, you know, not needing to be particularly finessed. You know, I have done some finessed parts, you know, putting a little handle here with a slight recess and a notch out to accept the hinge, things like that. This part is the coop and it's a little bit scruffy, and that's absolutely fine. So now I'm pretty much done with it. I just need to wrap it with chicken wire. I'm back in the workshop. What I'm thinking about now is how I'm going to get water to the chickens. I have this bucket which I've had for a long time. It was actually ironically designed for fermenting cider, but I never got around to doing it. So it's completely clean, but it's also BPA free and fine for water for feeding animals. So I've given it a rinse out. There are some bits of dust that have gone in it, so I'm going to have to make a lid for it. But it's actually pretty clean and safe for them to use. I need to make a stand for it so that it can sit on something. And this is why I never throw anything away. My wife had a stool which broke, some of the wood split on one of the legs, but this is solid oak and it's really, really sturdy and very strong and actually fits almost perfectly. It's a rectangle rather than a square. All of these sides fit really snugly, but where it's a rectangle, that's slightly out. So what I'm going to do is basically just get some plywood. It's just the thin stuff again. And I'm going to cut a base for it, and then I'm going to put some support struts across the middle. This is 25 litres, so it'll be 25 kilos worth of water. I think this will be strong enough, but I don't want to risk it. So this is upside down at the minute. This will be the top, this will be the base, and there'll be some support struts. And then what I'll do is I'll fill it with water, and then I've got a whole load of plumbing parts which I can use to drill a hole in the bottom and run a little tap unit off, which can be used to water the chickens. So I'll show you that bit in a second once I have finished making this. So for those of you that watched part 1 of my video, you'll recognise this scrap which I was meant to have as the flap down wall there, which I forgot, but it's getting used. So I'm going to have that as the supports for underneath here. So I've measured the depth. Measured the depth of that, run it on there. I can now run that through the table saw, chop it in half, and I can stick it in here across this way as the support. I can cut the lid out. So I'm going to chop these things up now, and then I'll assemble it and show you what it looks like. I set it all in upside down, and then screwed everything in place. So that is now super sturdy and very strong all I need to do now is just get some legs for the 4 corners, and I'm done. Okay, this is the only wood that I've got left, or got kicking around in my supplies, which is long enough. This stuff there isn't enough of, because I want this to be 75 centimeters high. It feels really sacrilegious, I'm not going to lie. It's really, really nice maple, but I've had it for years and I've not used it for anything else. And it's got some really good properties. It's an incredibly strong hardwood, and it's very, very dense and heavy, which means that for this application it's not going to bend or buckle. It's going to be really sturdy. So I've had it for about 8 years and I've not used any of it in that time. And I don't know if it's just because I like it so much that I can't bear to do anything with it. I got it for an absolute steal on eBay. I think I paid about 20 quid for all of this, and I've barely used any of it. So I'm going to bite the bullet and use some of it now. So I've clamped it up, I've squared the end off. Oh, also, what I'm doing, this is the only time I'm actually keeping defects. So these little bits have chipped. They can actually go up in the corners. Where the corners are there, these bits will fit in there fairly nicely. So I can actually leave these, and then I've got squarer, straighter ends. I'm going to flip this one round and do the same thing. Squarer, straighter ends up at this end, and the less choice bits down at that end. Drilled and screwed, 2 in there and then 1 in between. That goes all the way round. And this thing is really heavy and very, very sturdy. I can sit on it quite happily, working in my flip-flops and shorts because it's hot. So that is going to be absolutely fine with a 25 kilo bucket on it. That's no problem at all, sat like that. Right, as sturdy as this wood is, I'm still covering it in this cuprinol stuff. When this dries, I'll flip it over and I'll just do the legs all underneath and around the edges there. Didn't want to get any dirt on it. So in terms of pot, I'm just going to move all of these to the side. They basically stop the pipe from compressing using that length of pipe there. Going to have loads of spare. This goes in the bucket. This end will stay in the bucket and allow the water. There's a gasket, and then this end is it's all just push fit plastic. So that will be in the bucket and it will come down, and I'm going to have an on-off valve pretty quick underneath. Very simple. This is all 22mm. Nice big handle on it. And then this is compression fit. There's an olive in there, copper olive, top and bottom, which is fine. And then I'll carry on with a bit of pipe, elbow, and then this will just slowly taper down, and there'll be a stop cap here, which basically obviously stops the water. And then these will go at each side here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got the copper olives, but these go inside the pipe like that to stop the pipe from compressing. So put that on a base as well, just to keep it off the ground. I have waterproofed the legs underneath as well, all the way down to the bottom, and then put it on that. It's just extra caution basically. Now what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that this is nice and sturdy on the base, but out the way enough that it's not going to make it difficult at getting in here. That door's going to open inwards. I want this bucket to be as central as it can be on the stand to evenly distribute the weight, but I do want to offset this exit hole for the water because I don't want it going anywhere near this outdent on the plastic. And there's a fairly flat, even section there, so I think that's where I will put it, there or thereabouts. I basically just need to drill a hole. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a slightly oversized hole, and then the rubber gasket should hopefully prevent any extra water leaking out without the need for sealant or silicone or anything. Right, I used that forcing a bit there to make a hole in here, and then I've smoothed this edge inside and out so it's completely flat and flush. I ran my chisel around it very, very lightly. I've sanded it very lightly, So that is completely smooth, which should mean that when the gasket goes on, it can create a really good seal on there. Use the same Forstner bit to drill a hole here. It's less important that this one's smooth because the water's not on the outside here. And then line those holes up, run that up from the other side, put the rubber gasket on. And then put the lid on top. And there it is, that's nice and secure and sturdy. Fixed from the top and bottom. So actually when I move the bucket, the whole thing moves. Right, that is in and set. So this is now the moment of truth. I'm going to get a bucket of water, tip it in there and see if there are any leaks. I'm going to turn it off. So that allows me to check for leaks slightly better. You know what? I think it's worked. Huh. We have a water supply. Right, I've started laying out some of this chicken wire. It's a bit bigger than I thought it was going to be, but it is really quite strong. And what I've done is I rolled out a sheet and I went up to there, lay a brick on it, and then I cut at an angle, and I'm going to do the same up that side. And again, I'll flip that over and I'll use the angle to come out here, but it runs straight up there. Then I'm just tacking it on. Many of you may remember the bump nailer. If you've been watching my channel a lot, you'll recognise this from when I put the house wrap up on the extension up there on the loft. Great piece of kit, and it's really useful for this. So all I'm doing is I'm just making sure that it all comes up in here as well, just in case. And I can tuck that under like that. So I'd lay it down and then I would tuck it under here and then up the back. That way when they scratch it, it won't go anywhere. Once I've gone all the way round, I'll then start wrapping it further up top. Right, I wrapped this on the inside here, goes down. So this is actually one continuous piece that wraps around the corner, and then I've double skinned it there. I wrapped it around the corner, snipped across the middle there and folded one side and the other side, and I tucked it all under so it's really secure. There's the door here, which is completely separate and is secured on. This has its own mesh underneath. And the door I've just hung on the inside like this. I've put a latch internally like that. The door just swings open. Nicely balanced and hung, very easy. So now I'm just going to put some mesh over the top, and that is done. It's completely finished. I'm going to leave a little space here just so that you can get your hand in. I'll bend all the mesh round, just a little envelope there. I've put this mesh all over the top now, so this is fully secure. Then this is what I was saying about cutting a little relief cut all the way round so that you can get your hand in there and operate it without it tearing your hand to shreds. The final thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put some more of this wire all around the outside. I think it looks better and I want the double skin for strength, so I'm literally just going to wrap it all the way around. I'm not going to go all the way up. The stuff on the floor is fine, it's all going to be covered in dirt, but just one width the whole way around will just add one additional layer of protection, and then I'm done. So as I mentioned, the final piece of the puzzle is to fit these little cups. I'll show you how those go on in a minute. I'm just drilling the holes. I accidentally left that on, not off. And so this filled with water. Not the end of the world, it's drained out a little bit now. There was only a small amount in the pipe. So what I'm doing is I'm drilling it, and then I'm actually going to tap it as well. Makes it a little bit easier for these threads to get on here. And it does have a little rubber gasket as well. Right, that's what the end result looks like. It's on there. The rubber gasket should stop it from leaking. I haven't tested it yet, but as the chickens peck at this bit, it fills with water like that. So you just saw a little bit go in there, and then they realise, oh, actually I can drink at that, that's fine. And it kind of looks like a flower. The girls are in now. All 4 of them there, the little ladies. They're still getting used to their surroundings, but they're quite happy. So yeah, I'm just going to do a couple more. Well, actually I'll do 3 more, so they've got 1 each. And that'll be that. And that's it done. There are a few little drips coming out the back of that top one there, the one that's just being pecked at now by the hen, so I'm going to have to check that and stop that drip that you can see. I think a bit of PTFE tape will help that. But otherwise, that's a success, and they've got fresh running water. That is it on the chicken coop. If you're new to the channel, thank you very much for subscribing. I've had a lot of subscribers in the last week or 2, so thank you, welcome to the channel. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you did enjoy this video, thank you. Give it a like, a thumbs up, a subscribe, all of that sort of stuff. It's really helpful. See you on the next one.